Cult is King podcast. I am your host, Rambling Bones, joined by my co-host, the Duke.
Salutations.
And Duke, what is it that we do here?
Wow, we review and delve deep into the world of cult cinema.
Something like that. But yeah, we talk about cult movies here. And the cult movie of choice this time was mine, and I picked the Nicolas Cage classic, Vampire's Kiss. Now, prior to you even seeing it, when I said that we were watching this, you made a big groan, and you were all like, this is payback for making you watch Robot Monster. Now that you've seen it, do you feel like you've been paid back, or do you realize that I've just actually given you a gift instead?
I think I'm still in shock.
I guess that's also acceptable.
This might be one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen.
I'm not sure if I'll say it's the weirdest movie I've ever seen, but here's the brief plot synopsis. Spoilers, of course. So you have Nicolas Cage, the greatest actor of all time, and he plays Peter Lowe, who is a literary agent. And, he spends his time going to therapy and having one-night stands because he just can't have a good relationship. But that all changes when a vampire named Rachel takes a liking to him and begins to feed off of him nightly. This, of course, causes him to slowly turn into a vampire.
Except that it's not happening.
Yeah. What a way to ruin the surprise. No, you see, Peter Lowe, much like Nicolas Cage, is a head case, and he's not actually being visited by a vampire. When you first start watching the movie, it's not super apparent until one amazing scene where he is in the men's bathroom and he can't see himself in the mirror. Now, everyone can see him in the mirror. The audience can see him in the mirror.
But he does not see himself in the mirror.
But yeah, so he's not actually turning into a vampire, and instead is just going nuts and harassing his secretary Alva. That is the movie. Is Nick Cage acts crazy, thinks he's turning into a vampire while harassing his secretary Alva.
Though, to give you guys an idea, this movie really escalates.
Yeah, this movie has some tonal writing issues. Spoiler for the ending. It ends with him being staked through the heart with like a piece of like wood from a pallet, and it's just anticlimactic.
I don't know. That kind of felt appropriate.
I don't.
But
here's the thing is,
I guess it happens all at once at the very end.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I guess with the way the movie is, you get to the end and it's like, well, where else can we go? I don't know. Let's just kill him. The end.
I think the thing about this movie is you don't really understand what you're watching until it's over, if then, because I guess the one thing they do really well with this movie is Nicolas Cage certainly comes off as certifiable. And as his delusions evolve throughout the movie, he finds new ways of acting crazy and escalating things.
So this was one of the early Nick Cage films. If you didn't know, Nick Cage is a nephew, I believe, of Francis Ford Coppola. So he had appeared in several Coppola movies, and right after filming Moonstruck with Cher, he filmed in this movie.
And I don't even think when they started that Moonstruck had even been released, so he was still relatively
unknown.
Yeah.
And this was also a case of he didn't really get paid much. This movie was made for $2 million, but that's low budget for a movie from, I think, 1988.
It is, though Wikipedia would have you believe it's 1989, one of the couple things they have wrong about this movie.
I will say, on the case of Wikipedia there, it could have been filmed in 88. and came out in 89.
Fair enough. I looked at every other site and they listed it as 88.
Then
So
it's
I'm like,
probably 88. Yeah, if you're looking for information on this movie, and this is where we got most of our information, you want to look for an article by The Ringer. It's probably the only article by The Ringer about this movie, so you won't have to look that hard. If
and
you
it's great. It's where we got most of our information. They got interviews and got quotes and stuff from the writer, from the producer,
and
from the director.
yeah, and even though they didn't get an interview with Nick Cage, they used stuff from his audio commentary track he did for the film. But no, if you go to IMDb or what was it that Wikipedia said, like Rachel?
Yeah, that Rachel convinces him he's a vampire and then they fall in love or something.
Yeah, that's not in the movie.
No.
And IMDb in the fun fact about the fun fact section of IMDb, those are all written by people, and much like Wikipedia, they can be dubious in nature, such as someone said that Christian Bale used this movie as inspiration for his role in American Psycho. Now, I can see how you would make a connection between the two movies. This is a literally me movie, much like American Psycho. We'll talk about that later.
Oh boy, will we.
But that's just wrong. Like, Christian Bale literally said his inspiration for Patrick Bateman was Tom Cruise because there's no life behind those eyes. That's a straight up fact. But if you go to Vampire's Kiss, you'll see that fact. It's not real. So be careful out there on the internet. People just post lies sometimes.
Well, and that was the only rumor going around about this that wasn't true. I think a lot of people are under the impression that this movie was filmed or was meant to be a serious film that became a comedy because Nicolas Cage's acting was so bizarre. But I believe you were telling me too that that's also
not
true.
According to the writer Joseph Minion, I think his direct quote was, "The film's a comedy, not a joke." You should know that Minion is like the poster child of the sad boy.
Yes. If you want to take like disillusioned Hollywood writer.
Yeah. He hasn't done a ton of things, but apart from this being the height of his career, you could also maybe say his movie After Hours that he wrote, which is Martin Scorsese directed that. So that's a pretty high accolade to have.
Right. Well, and I get the feeling it sounds like he basically wrote most of this in a like depression-filled stupor one night, and his girlfriend at the time was a producer who helped him get this movie made. But
yeah, so his producer girlfriend told him to write a script pretty much, and I believe in the article he used the word toxic relationship multiple times to describe their relationship. And so he wrote this screenplay about it's pretty much about them to an extent. And the producer was like, she read the script and instantly knew what it was about, but it was such a good script that, you gotta make it. So
unfortunately, she probably regretted that at times because the production of this movie was completely wild. And it was wild because of our good friend Nicolas Cage, who was as strange on set as he was on screen.
Yeah.
You want to just give us a few of his antics here?
Yeah, some of his antics. So I'll quickly say that the director, this was the director's like big screen debut, his first feature film, Robert Bierman. And him and Cage just sort of like whatever Cage wants to do, Bierman pretty much let him do it. And Nick Cage wanted to do a lot of things. Now, one thing Cage was not allowed to do was have a real bat in the movie.
And he pitched a fit about it because he really thought they needed a real bat.
Yeah, or at the very beginning of the movie, I guess the inciting incident for Cage's mania is this, bat flies into the room, and they used a mechanical bat. And Cage, they just had, it wouldn't be real if they didn't use a real bat. So he kept trying to get them to bring in a real bat. He kept getting told no. There was a PA, production assistant, assigned to him specifically. He sent the PA into like Central Park with a broom and a cooler to catch a bat. I believe he found out that you could get bats from like live bats from Mexico or something. And they finally got him to drop it when they said, bats have rabies. If you get it, it bites you, you die. The movie's ruined.
Yeah, that's literally how they said it from looking at the thing.
And so Cage dropped it.
He also really wanted the part of Rachel to be played by his girlfriend, and when that didn't happen, he was very cold with I believe it was Jennifer Beals.
Yeah, Jennifer Beals, who is she's in the Book of Boba Fett and Flashdance, among other things. So she's a big name actor like Cage who has had a career beyond this. But no, apparently I think the producer had to call Beals' agent and apologize for the way Nick Cage behaved and just said he's just a very method actor or something like that. Like Cage actually does like her. But Cage for the first half of the movie did not actually like her. I think eventually they did become friends on set, but
that must have made the more intimate scenes especially awkward.
Now, I didn't want to talk about this, but Duke insisted that we talk about this.
It is our job to dutifully report on the movie, and this is part of the movie.
There are two mercifully short love scenes between Rachel and Peter, Nick Cage and Jennifer Beals. And you never see the camera cuts off Nick Cage's feet from the frame. Duke, why are Nick Cage's feet cut off from the frame?
In order to properly portray the act he was performing, he wanted warm yogurt to be played on his, or to be poured over his toes. And here's the thing, Bones, I'm not sure why there's so many weird rumors about this movie when the facts are far weirder.
Yeah.
And no, that's confirmed. That's not a rumor.
I don't want to look into that anymore. I don't want to know anything more about Nick Cage and warm yogurt.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Well, and here's the thing too. If you watch this, or if at the very least you should go on YouTube and just look up all the like insane scenes. Nicolas Cage did not improv. He did, for the most part, he said what they wanted him to say. Except for one part he did add himself. There was a part where he finds a roach on his stove. In the script, I guess he was supposed to like suck on a raw egg or something. Instead, he decided it would be so much better if he ate a roach. And with much arguing, he did. And they can't say that no animals were harmed in this film because some were. He grabbed the roach and literally ate it. He literally chews it and swallows it. It's not a special effect.
Yeah.
He had to do that twice to make it work.
And between each after eating the roach, he then took a shot of 100 proof vodka, I guess, to disinfect his mouth. This wasn't Nick Cage's idea. Somebody else was like, you need, I mean, it's a roach. You're probably fine, but you should probably,
I think he said it was technically a water bug. I don't know what the,
it
certainly looked like a roach to me.
Yeah, it looks like a roach to me too.
I'm sure it tasted like a roach.
I'm sure it did too. Some people were upset about this, but they were quickly shut down by, I mean, my heart goes out to roaches and whatnot, but Most people who would complain about a roach being killed on screen have killed many roaches in their own home, you know? So,
I feel just really bad for like the production assistants and stuff in all of this. This must have been a wild ride.
well, I
Go catch a bat.
go catch a bat, go catch roaches, go just absolute mess.
Well, and there's a lot of strange things just came out of Cage's particular brand of method acting. Apparently, he would like isolate himself in parts of the studio when they weren't filming, and they would just run in on him, and he'd just be listening to like weird chanting music by himself.
Part of me, I'm always a little curious how much of that is, the method acting and how much of it is just, Cage is just a weirdo and that's what he likes. But a lot of his performance, he said, was based off of like the silent performances of Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Nosferatu, which there is one scene where he mimics like perfectly a scene from Nosferatu, like the
Right.
movements.
And it's while he's in a nightclub wearing plastic fangs, just looking like an absolute nut. And he's got like the head turned down and like the stiff body motions.
Yeah, a weird connection you could make here is German actor Klaus Kinski is commonly thought of as the German Nick Cage. And one of Kinski's bigger roles was in the remake of Nosferatu, where he was Nosferatu. So
Just an interesting degree of connection.
Just an interesting little connection.
Well, and apparently there's this one scene that's become quite infamous on YouTube where he's at his therapist, and or at least he's in his therapist at his head, and he's describing how he's never misfiled anything. How could anybody misfile anything? And he starts saying the ABCs, but he says the entire thing, and he's like gyrating his hands and yelling it. Apparently, he wasn't making that up as he went. He choreographed that in front of his cat in his apartment several times before the actual scene.
This is a movie, also like American Psycho, where I think many people have experienced it through memes. However, they probably didn't know what the memes were from. If you've ever seen like a close-up of Nick Cage's face where his eyes are all crazy, or I mean, you might have even seen the ABC, the alphabet scene. There are so many memes and still images pulled from this movie.
Right, and I mean that's still happening today, but I mean one of the like most popular like old memes, back on, Facebook back when it was cool to be on Facebook, of like when he has his head tilted in the eyes and like the dumb face.
Yeah.
Like that was everywhere, and I'm going to guess that most people had no clue where it was from.
This is a movie that people are now beginning to really appreciate, but at the time when it came out, it killed everyone's career.
Right. Well,
except for Nick Cage.
And it was kind of the perfect storm. I mean, one, it was incredibly bizarre, so most people weren't prepared for it. And of course, the critics now have reassessed their position now that people are changing their minds. But at the time, the critics didn't like it for the most part. It went up against Batman, so obviously it got its butt royally kicked. It was, despite its modest $2 million budget, it only made $725,000, something in that ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't even make half its budget back.
And I don't even think it had to go up against Batman, but they messed around with the distribution and things got delayed, and so it didn't come out until right then. But no, Robert Bierman hasn't done much since.
Yeah, I think that pretty much helped kill his career. I know he's directed some episodes of The Walking Dead, but if you look at like movies he's directed, it's a pretty short list.
Now, the actors, I think the actors were pretty much fine. Nick Cage's secretary, Alva, is played by Maria Conchita Alonso, who was in Predator 2.
And The Running Man.
She was also in Lords of Salem, if you are a fan of Rob Zombie films.
She's also in a lot of other stuff, but as far as things that would interest you guys, those are probably the three most notable.
Yeah, I already mentioned Jennifer Beals and what she was in, and Elizabeth Ashley is the therapist, and she was also in a lot of stuff. A lot of high quality stuff, such as the Stagecoach made for TV remake with Johnny Cash.
That's the high point.
That is the high point. I guess she was also in Happiness, which I haven't seen, but I've only been. All I know about it is that the name is a lie and it is a very unhappy watch.
Well, and then the only other, I think, actor, or I should say actress that I can think of in this movie is Casey Lemons, who plays Nick Cage's girlfriend at or I guess
Oh,
recipient of his one night stand early in the film. I guess they kind of have an on and off thing going on. And you might know her because she was in the movie Candyman.
she was also in Silence of the Lambs as like Clarice's peer, like study buddy. She's not in the movie a lot, but she is in the movie. Now, let's talk a bit about the writing for this movie, because that's something. The first time I watched this, I really enjoyed it, but there is sort of like a whiplash to it.
It is, especially towards the end where it takes a much darker turn, but it takes another goofy turn.
Well,
It's not like a lot of movies you've seen. It's not a straight up comedy and it's not a straight up drama, but it doesn't really alternate between the two. They're just kind of oddly blended.
yeah, the movie gets oddly serious at times, and then, I mean, for the most part, is just typically goofy. But even despite the whiplash, just maybe like the pacing of it feels like a first draft, I think, because watching it, it feels like it takes too long to get to the part where you realize that this is actually all in Nick Cage's head. As much as I love the alphabet scene and Nick Cage huffing and puffing like a child saying, "I never filed anything wrong."
And keep in mind, anytime we say Nick Cage says anything in this movie, you need to imagine him doing a very fake, faux British accent because he speaks the entire film in a fake British accent.
Yes. We should have like mentioned that right off the start.
I think with how we've described the movie so far, aside from some of just his tantrums and strange things he did on set, it's hard to really come across just how strange this movie is.
But
and sometimes just like gut-busting hilarious.
yeah, but it's like I like the alphabet scene, but it actually like it doesn't move the plot along. It doesn't say anything we didn't know, or it is literally just there for Nick Cage. I mean, it wasn't written that way because Nick Cage wasn't attached prior, but it's just there. It doesn't fit, I think, and there's a lot of, I don't know. It could be a tighter script.
It could, but I mean, a lot of it is, I gotta say, it starts out funny before it gets really dark, but a lot of my favorite parts are Nick's just like his just torturing of his poor secretary. Like he at one point, so he starts off by giving her like this contract that he needs a like copy of, and she has to go through all of these like just thousands of files to find it, and he's constantly, so I guess he works as a literary agent.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the authors wanted a copy of like their first contract, and the author's being completely cool about it on the phone, but he's like acting like if he doesn't get it there, he's going to lose one of their biggest clients. And he like makes her stay late, and at one point he's just keeps shouting her name and she's hunched over her desk, and then he runs out of his office, jumps on a table, points and shouts, "There you are," and then chases her into the women's bathroom. It's insane.
Yeah, and that's not the only time he chases her down.
She even calls in sick from work, and he goes to her house, brings her some soup, acts like they're going to patch things up, and then the moment she gets in the cab, he starts yelling at her about how they need to find that file and drags her back to work. He's like, he is just completely bonkers.
Yes, the scene where he is making the crazy face is, he just gives this great monologue about how she asked for help, and he's just like, It's an awful, terrible job, and I wouldn't give it to anyone else in the office. You're the lowest on the totem pole. Not even if someone came in one day after you would I give it to them. I,
And like she never does anything wrong at any point. And then when she finally does find it, he chases her into the basement because he's having a mental breakdown and assaults her in the like
he
and that's where it gets really dark.
Yeah, I guess I it didn't register with me that it was like supposed to be he's got her down in the basement and he's trying to get her to kill him because he wants to die and he
And
knows she has a gun.
now what he doesn't know is that her gun is loaded with blanks. So after she like faints or falls down, he grabs the gun, puts it in his mouth and pulls the trigger, only to realize that he can't die because he's a vampire.
Yeah, and well, after trying to shoot himself, he then proceeds to yell "Boo-hoo!"
Yes, his crying is literally him screaming "Boo-hoo!"
But he pretty much it's it's thankfully it is not like a rape scene, but watching it, I was just like I thought it was just like assault, sexual assault, something
Yeah,
like that. But later in the movie, well, like he is having this fake conversation with his therapist in his head, and he's like, "Oh, by the," he's patching his life up with his therapist. He's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I might have committed a rape."
yeah. I hope you know YouTube's mad at us. Thanks,
Yeah,
Bones.
yeah, we're gonna
Get
we have to
demonetized.
we have to talk
We're
about
not
it.
monetized.
We'll censor the word.
What a world we live in.
Yeah, what a
But
world.
not that, but he also goes on to commit a murder by going to a nightclub while pretending to be Nosferatu with big plastic teeth. And I guess the woman thinks he's being kinky in there, but when he can't get the job done with the thing, he bites her neck because he thinks he's a vampire and, like, kills her.
Literally kills her.
Like, there's some extremely dark stuff just floating around in this farce.
And so like the ending is Alva's brother goes to his apartment, and now Peter wants to die. So
And he's convinced that he can't because he's a vampire.
but so like, Peter is holding the stake up to his, stomach, and of course the brother kills him with it.
And then it ends.
It's just wow. There is just really dark, like out of the blue, kind of take you out of the moments.
Well, and this is all just prior to this. He's been wandering around the street with a board trying to get people to stake him. And the thing is that people didn't know who Nicolas Cage was at the time. These are not actors. He was just wandering around the street with a board trying to tell, like, random pedestrians and homeless people to kill him with the stake. And so when you're seeing their reactions to him, like he's some crazy guy in New York, they just thought he was.
Yeah, no, they set the camera up at one end of the street far away and just filmed Nick Cage with blood on his face, looking crazy, saying, "I'm a vampire, kill me."
At one point, he's like next to a dumpster and he's talking to it because he thinks in his head he's talking to his therapist, who hooks him up with a girl, and all his love troubles are solved. Except that even as he's going to his apartment before he gets killed, he then breaks up with the girlfriend that only exists in his head because she can't understand that he's a vampire.
Yeah, he looks completely crazy. He's walking down the street. There's no one next to him, and he is having a conversation with this fake in his head woman, and it completely devolves by the time he gets to his apartment to him being mad at her because she won't stop asking him why he turned into a vampire.
And keep in mind, all of this is occurring in a very bad British accent. Every line of the movie.
Now, I haven't completely analyzed the British accent. The excuse given was that it is like a purposeful faux British accent that Peter, the character, is affecting, so to make to make people think he is smarter than he is.
Well, and
And
I
that
mean
in
that's
the
kind of a there is kind of a like especially back in the day a kind of like coastal elite like upper crust accent.
I think Cage said that in the therapy scenes the accent is much less and more put away. I I guess I'd have to watch and really analyze to tell if that was true and it looked like there was some intention behind this stuff, or if it was just a case of, no, I thought doing a faux British accent would be a good idea, and I did it the entire movie.
Whatever the case is, I mean, Cage obviously thought a lot about the crazy crap he did, and that's the craziest part to me is like this went through his head several times. He thought this was perfect. And I mean, I guess in some ways it is. It's hard to how you take this movie has a lot to do with how you take Cage's performance here. Whether this is a so bad it's good, or whether they tapped into something strange here and it was just normal good, just very strange.
I'm curious what your thoughts on that are, because first time I watched it, I thought it was a so bad it was good movie. Now I'm sort of, after watching it a second time, I was like, maybe this movie is just good. I think it's got some, maybe it's like an hour 47 minutes. Maybe it could lose 17 minutes. And I don't know. Maybe Cage could be reined in a little bit. I don't know.
At the same time, though, if they reined Cage in, would we be talking about this movie?
I don't know. But I'm sort of more in the camp of maybe this is just a good movie rather than maybe it's just a so bad it's good movie.
I'm on the fence. I can't see what they were going for. Like, there are obviously, like, themes and stuff they had in mind. It kind of occupies what you described as the literally me genre, which is, a small niche of films that's like this one, Taxi Driver, Drive, American Psycho, where you have, like, these people, I guess, just absolutely failing to be part of society and kind of, like, the way trying to deal with society breaks their brain down. And I think there's definitely the writer's making some comments about like New York City in general, but at the same time, despite the fact I know he's doing this, that's not the impression I'm left with at the end of the day. And I think that, I don't know if that's just me, but I think when most people watch this though, instead of thinking about these things, what they're going to think about is, haha, Nick Cage is eating bugs and jumping on tables and harassing women in the street and is a vampire.
I think though the performance is necessary because the character isn't likable. Like if it wasn't Nick Cage, you wouldn't like him. And
No, if anything, the only thing likable is you like him the way towards once you've been with him for a while, you kind of like him the way you like a clown. But yeah, no, he's not a sympathetic character in any way. He has like no redeemable traits.
I think that's part of the reason the ending sort of is kind of weird to me because all right, so we've mentioned it, but he's on the streets. He's having his fake conversation with his therapist, and this fake conversation with his therapist is almost like him redeeming his life. Like he realizes that love, like he needs to actually have a real relationship with a woman, and like an actual good relationship, and he gets attached to the other fake woman in his head who is of course perfect, and by the time he gets back to his apartment, it's all that character build, growth is just completely shattered by the time he gets back to his apartment, and then he dies.
Yeah, like I guess
there's no redemption at all.
There's no lesson learned by anybody. Everybody comes off worse for this for these encounters. A woman's dead. Alva's got Price severe mental issues. Her brother has to go kill a man, and all Nick Cage learned was that he was a vampire, and then he died. After breaking up with two women who only existed in his head.
Exactly. Literally
And
me, of course.
and one who was perfectly fine, who he ditched for the woman in his head. Like, I will say one thing I did like about the movie, I like is all the little touches with Nick Cage, like trying to like. There's a lot of things where it's not necessarily calling attention to the fact of what he's doing, but like he's in the meeting and he's turning down. He's the
Yeah, the blinds.
yeah, he's working the blinds. Or at one point where he's looking in the mirror and he like touches it and he's like, "Sss." Like all these just little goofy mannerisms and things. I mean, I don't know. There were small details, but I think they helped enhance the movie for me. I don't know. I think this movie is both good and bad at the same time. I have no idea how to feel about it. I also don't have the luxury yet of having had a second watch. So all I've got is my just initial, reaction, which was that I think I about died laughing through most of it. I think I had to like take a minute to get my breath a few times. Because it's very funny.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Now, I know we connected this to like American Psycho as a literally me movie, but us talking about it being so bad it's good movie. Midway, there's a certain scene that made us think of another movie.
Remind me what scene we're talking about.
In the movie The Room.
Oh, yes, there's this one part where he's mad and he's like just destroying his apartment and knocking stuff off the thing. And I was about to say, I looked over to Bones and I said, you know who he reminds me of right now? And Bones, without missing a beat, was like Tommy Wiseau. And I'm like, yes!
His destruction of his apartment is like if when Tommy destroys his room in The Room, if Tommy had energy and could afford to actually destroy props. Or actually, I think Tommy could, but he didn't. He is just half-hearted destruction. While Nick Cage, I mean, he high kicks a lamp. He is breaking with. It's actually,
dude, he's like a rock star in the 80s in a hotel room. He is just like wrecking everything.
And I think that this, when there is like actual glass being broken, typically you're supposed to have a stunt man because it is, dangerous. But Nick Cage is breaking a bunch of real glass, like mirrors, and that lamp was glass, I think. He's just completely wrecks the room. One of the small touches that I liked is his coffin is, he has a couch that is overturned and he is sleeping on the floor with like pillows and he sleeps under the couch.
Yeah, he has it like propped up a little bit with like some just random books as his house is completely destroyed. One, because we forgot to mention he ate a pigeon in there. There's a scene where he just catches a pigeon on the street and tucks it under his jacket, and then later he goes and eats it in his room. So there are like feathers everywhere and everything's destroyed and the curtains are blocking out the windows.
Mm-hmm. But whenever like the coffin, the couch is lifted and then sat down, it makes like a coffin creak noise that it shouldn't make.
Oh, I think it's even funnier than that. Was it last year that Renfield came out and Nicolas Cage finally got to be a proper vampire?
Yes, he did.
Got to be Dracula of all people.
One thing that was interesting from that Ringer article. This was from 2018, or at least from Nick Cage was asked. I forget what for, maybe like an award or something. But Nick Cage was asked what his favorite performance he gave was, and as of 2018, Vampire's Kiss was his favorite performance in a movie.
Well, and he was obsessed with being in this film. In fact, he walked away at first because he really wanted the writer to direct it. But
yeah.
I would say he had to have this role, so I'm glad that he still thinks fondly of it. If anything, the movie has more of an audience now than it did when it was released. One, because of all of the memes, but two, I guess those are just kind of themes right now that a lot of people are connecting with, is just kind of the way society just drives you insane. kind
uh,
of genre.
l- loneliness, not being a good person.
Right, relationships and stuff. I don't know. I'm sure it sounds very dumb coming out of my mouth right now, but I don't know. It's just definitely a lot of there's a lot of people on the internet right now who
This
relate to
is,
this much more than people did, I think, when it was made.
yeah, the fact that the literally me movie genre exists. That you wouldn't hear a film critic say that, but people on the internet really seem to relate to the male social outcast who has very few redeemable qualities.
Right, and yeah, don't get me wrong. Peter Lowe is not likable in any way, other than the fact that he's silly.
Yes.
He is at parts pitiable, but then at other parts he takes whatever few good things he has and uses them to just completely make people around him completely miserable.
Yeah. Well, Duke, I don't know if I have much else to say about this movie. I feel like the most I could do now is just talk more about gags, but I think the audience should have some surprises.
I think the only thing really left to say about this is that it is free on Tubi right now,
Yes.
which is where we saw it. So if you are wanting to watch it for free and you're not sure whether you want to commit to like buying this one or not, it's free, so you should probably go watch it because look, I don't know if you'll love this movie or hate it. I make no promises, but you will be entertained. You will not be bored.
You will not be bored. I will real quickly though read a quick quote by Nick Cage. I did the movie for no money because I liked the script and wanted to try something new with my acting. That last part, I wanted to try something new with my acting, is the key here.
Right. One thing I will say, not only was this like the prototype Nick Cage for like the crazy stuff that would come after this movie, but also I was watching another movie that I don't know, it was pretty popular. I didn't personally care for it, called The Color Out of Space, and I saw it before this movie, and it's like a Lovecraft movie, and it has Nicolas Cage in it. And at one point, he was having a meltdown in the movie, and I thought he was doing a bad Trump impression, and that this was like some political commentary. Now doing it, I realize he's doing the Peter Lowe voice from this movie.
Yeah, I did see a comment somewhere on the internet where somebody thought he was doing a Trump impersonation, but the thing is like they're like, he sounds like 2016 Trump. Why does he sound like this? This movie was made in 1988.
So I guess that was just an interesting coincidence.
This is that cornerstone for the rest of Nick Cage's film career. If you like Nick Cage films, this is like
If you
a
like,
must see.
if you enjoy the YouTube Nick Cage freaking out compilation, this is a movie for you.
Yeah. And so I like Nick Cage. Barring me liking Nick Cage, I would recommend this movie in general. Again, I'm not sure if it's a good movie or so bad it's good, but it's a movie that made me laugh, and that is the point. It is very funny.
Yes, even like I said, some of that laughter might have been shocked laughter, but I did laugh a lot. Which means, though, that it is my turn to pick the movie again.
Yes, that is the episode. What are we doing next episode?
You know, Christmas has like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Santa Claus is Coming to Town, but did you know Halloween we have a movie like that too?
I was aware, but I have not seen.
I haven't seen it since I was 5, so we'll see how it is, but we are going to watch Mad Monster Party.
The holiday classic that I don't think enough people know about. I mean, like I said, I haven't seen it yet.
Well, I remember that I used to be obsessed with it to the point where my mom hated it. She didn't want to watch it anymore. I have not seen it in a very long time. I remember nothing about it, save that it's a Rankin Bass movie, so it's that kind of puppet effects. And I'm pretty sure Boris Karloff does a voice. I'll know so much more about this next week.
And you should be there next time we are here. Duke, where will next time be? Where can they hear us?
Everywhere, man. We're on Spotify, YouTube, Odyssey, Castbox, probably some other fifth thing that I have forgotten about.
I
That
I
might
feel
be.
like I should know, but I don't.
Look, we are expanding our tendrils all over the internet.
Yes, and if you enjoyed this content, you
This content. We are content creators. If you enjoyed this content, please give us some updates.
yes, please. Yeah, since it's Spook Month, give us updates and hit the
Smash that like button, Cult Army.
and hit that spook scribe button.
Now, with our dignity left far behind, I'd like to just tell you all good night. Thanks for listening, and keep it cold.
Yes, goodbye.